You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, your weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your hosts, Steph and Tara, every Wednesday morning as they dive into a new witchy topic.
Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. This is Steph.
And this is Tara.
And you are listening to episode 39, Why Your Spells Aren't Working.
Woohoo! Also, why spells may backfire.
There are a lot of common reasons that this may happen. We touched on some of them at the very beginning of this podcast, and we kind of talked about what magic can and cannot do. So we're going to go over some of the same reasons that we talked about in that episode, because when people talk about their spell not working or their spell backfiring, they are often asking it for things that magic just cannot do.
Yes.
So we are going to go over some common reasons why a spell may not be working, and also what a spell backfire is, because that's a little different than it just not working at all.
Correct.
And how you can sort of work to prevent those backfires. So the first common reason why a spell may not be working is because you aren't putting the energy and intention in that you need to be. You cannot just read things out of a spell book. Magic is not the same as a recipe in the kitchen.
Yes.
A lot of people just find a spell book, and there's a lot more widely available now, and just sort of read the words off a page and add those certain ingredients the same that they would with a cookbook. But that's not exactly the way that it works. You need to, center yourself, do grounding and manipulate energy. That's why we started with those things at the beginning of those podcasts, because that's what makes it magical, is putting in this energy and intention. So if you're just reading the words off a page, that's not going to work.
If you think about a lot of movies where, and these are very fictional, but they're summoning demons and things, and they just read an incantation in Latin and poof, there's a demon. That's not at all how magic works. And if you're expecting it to, you're always going to be disappointed in the results, because you're not going to get very far. Additionally, if you remember our book recommendations, none of the first beginner books we recommended were spell books. Not a single one.
Yes, we recommended a lot of foundational books because there's a lot more to learn before you attempt any sort of spells, to get the basics down before actually casting a spell.
Correct.
The second reason that we talked about is because magic cannot do the impossible. There's a lot of impossible things out there that people think magic can do, like making you fly.
Yes.
Or shoot fire out of your fingertips. And none of those things are possible. You cannot ignore the physical limitations of this plane. Those still exist. There's still physics involved. So magic can't make you fly. So it cannot ask for the impossible and expect that to happen. That's one reason that it may not be working. So look closely at what you're actually asking for.
And on the flip side of that, it may not be impossible, but you might be asking for something that's so specific that the magic can't help you. Like, if I need $50 in the next hour and I cast a spell for that, that's very specific. If I'm spending all my energy casting that spell and I don't know, not going out and working or there's got to be a certain balance. Not only can it not be impossible, but if you're too specific, it falls within the impossible realm as well.
Yes, you want to be specific in what you're asking for. You don't want to put out, vague things out into the universe. You do want to be very clear in what you're asking for, but that's different than asking for too much or being too specific. Say you're looking for more love in your life. You don't want to cast a spell that you want to meet a man in the next month that is 6'2" and has blonde hair and blue eyes, and he's from Australia and he's an investment banker. And that is so specific that it's just impossible. It's not going to happen.
And his name is John. And
you have to be realistic when there's a lot of ways to ask the universe to bring more love into your life, the right person. There's a way to put out the right energy for that sort of working, but you cannot be that specific and ask for so much. That's just not going to happen.
And I think it's not necessarily the flip side of the impossible, but you're expecting so much that it's very hard for the universe to deliver such a specific request. When we talked about spirit guides and things, they're going to gently show you the path, not make you walk it. The universe is a lot like that. Like, it's going to help you get where you need to be in the end, but it might not be the path that you've specifically laid out stone by stone.
Another reason that your spell might not be working is that you are not putting in as much effort as you think you are. We talked about this before, that spell work on its own is not enough. You need to put in the mundane efforts as well.
Completely agree with this. You can't cast a spell once, walk away, and not do anything day to day to help with that. Like we talked about, if you want to hit a certain career goal and you cast a spell asking to advance your career, if you don't actually work towards that, you don't put in for promotions, you don't talk to your boss about opportunities or apply to new jobs, the universe is not going to just drop it into your lap.
Yeah, we talked about this before. If you wanted to make new friends, if you're casting some sort of friendship spell, but then you sit in your house and don't go out and don't get online, literally there's no way to meet anyone. So you actually have to go out and do some of the work. You have to put in the mundane efforts. This comes a lot as a general warning that we put before anybody, was we've gotten some questions about healing spells. Before you undertake healing workings, or along with your healing workings, you need to see the doctor.
Yeah.
You cannot just use crystals for healing and never go get a diagnosis and talk to a doctor. The universe wants you to
help yourself
and do these mundane efforts too. It's not just all about the magical.
And I think a lot of times more advanced practitioners don't think to mention the mundane efforts because they understand that it's the whole picture that gets you where you need to be. Beginners are a lot less likely to think about the whole picture. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like when I was a beginner, I was like, well, I cast a spell and this is going to happen for me. No, not without, you have to put more, your intention and your effort, magical and otherwise, needs to all be directed towards the same point in order to get your spells to work.
Another reason it may not be working is that you're not giving it enough time.
Yes, this is a huge one.
A lot of beginners think that it will be instantaneous, but nothing in this life that you work for is instantaneous. So you have to give it enough time to work, especially if you're asking for something bigger, like advancement in your career, and you're working towards that. That's not going to happen in a week. So you need to give it a little more time to work. Don't just automatically think that something's wrong. I need to do the spell again. I need to change the spell. You need to give it some time to actually get out in the universe and start working for you.
And I think that's a huge part of discouragement that beginner witches sometimes face, is they've cast a spell and they're not seeing immediate results. That's why when we were talking about, as beginners, start small. Don't ever be afraid to start small. You will see results, but it's easier to see the small incremental steps than the giant steps in a shorter time frame, just because the universe needs time to work.
And another reason is that your working may have already manifested, but you are not recognizing it because it's not in the way that you expected it to.
Yes.
This often happens because you were too vague. We talked about being too specific and asking for too much, but there's also being too vague. And that happens a lot in money spells, attracting wealth and money, that if you don't want to ask for too much. You're not going to win the lottery by casting a magical spell. But at the same time, you want to be specific in your goals and what you're working towards, because if you just do a general like money come to me, and you find a penny on the ground, technically that's manifested. That spell worked because you did find wealth. You found that penny, but that is obviously not what you were expecting when you cast a spell. So you do need to be a little more specific and say, I would like to increase my wealth by getting a raise, or some specific goal, some specific number in mind. Rather, otherwise you're going to find something like a penny on the ground and not realize that your working is already manifested.
I've seen this a lot in love spells where you're inviting love into your life. I had a friend, she was terribly disappointed. She did not have a significant other. She did this really elaborate love spell. She wanted it more than anything. And she was really upset. About 6 weeks later, she hadn't met anyone, but she had developed a really close group of girlfriends. They were going out on Fridays and doing drinks on Friday. They were having kid play dates on Tuesdays. She was developing a really strong friendship with some ladies that she hadn't previously really talked to or known. The universe was giving her love, just not what she was expecting, but she didn't say romantic love. She just wanted that support and someone to be there, and she got it. It just wasn't what she had envisioned when she originally cast the spell.
Another reason is that you need to concentrate energetically.
Yes.
This is why we recommend grounding and centering. You need to, while you're doing the working, concentrate on the working at hand, energetically, obviously. And then each time that you come back to that or think about that, you need to focus your energy. So if you are not great at this, I know Tara suffers from struggles in this area, but it's really important to concentrate energetically. And if you're like Tara and you struggle, then start small. And
I always recommend that.
Do some sort of spell or working that is a tiny little birthday candle and takes 30 seconds to burn out instead of doing a 7-day candle. If you can't focus your energy like that for 7 days and concentrate on that, then just do something small and quick that's only going to take 2 minutes of your time to focus. That's where you want to start.
Always, and this is my advice to everyone, start with baby steps. Same with like yoga. I could not touch my toes for the longest time. I've been practicing yoga pretty consistently now for almost 9 months. I can now touch my toes. I can actually reach beyond them. But it didn't happen instantaneously. It didn't even happen in the first month. Like, concentrate on touching my ankles, then the top of my foot, then my toes, then reach beyond my toes. Once you start seeing results, you'll know more what to do and you'll be re-energized to continue. But don't try and this is a weird analogy, but don't try and like touch the ground while standing if you've never touched your toes before. You're just going to hurt yourself and be disappointed in the results.
Another reason that your spells may not be working is that it's simply not meant to manifest. We can ask for a lot of things from the universe, but that doesn't mean that we should get them or deserve them. There are just some things that the universe is saying, you're not ready for this right now. Like maybe you'll get it later, or maybe it's just not something that you're meant to have ever.
Yes. This is huge. Mm-hmm.
So the universe is smarter than you are. So it might simply not be meant to be. And if you've tried it a couple times and it's not working, it may be just time to take a step back from that and come back to it at a later date, because it might just not be the right time.
Again, I see this a lot with love spells. That I know a lot of people don't like being by themselves, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But wishing yourself love, that's not always the best way to go about it. And the universe may know more than you. Your soulmate might be going through a hard time. Your soulmate might be in another area, another relationship, and they need to grow into who you're going to love. So there's a lot out there that we can't see or know. And so the universe knows.
Another reason is that you are not doing what you promised that you would do.
This one's huge with the Fae.
Yes, a lot of different spell work promises that you will be doing something. So if you were working with deities or the Fae and you have an altar, you go out into nature and you promise that you are going to bring them offerings, or that you are going to light a candle for them, you know, every day for a month or something like that, and you don't follow through on that, they're not going to be happy with you. And likewise, even if you're not working with these, you know, entities, but you're just asking the universe to provide for something, and you say, you know, I would like, you know, this help on finding this job, and I'm going to send out a job application every single day for a week, and then you don't do it, you're not delivering on what you promised to do. So you are not going to see the results that you're looking for. And it's the same as if you didn't finish a working. So like I said, there's 7-day candles, and if you don't light that candle for 7 days, then you did not finish that working.
Yeah.
So that energy is just holding there and staying. So you need to do what you set out to do, what you promised that you were going to do when you started. You need to finish it all the way through.
As a witch and a Libra and an attorney, a bargain is a bargain. It's all about balance. If you can't uphold your end, there's no reason the universe should hold up theirs.
Exactly. And the last reason the spell may not be working sort of ties in with that is if you're working with spirits and deities, is that you didn't establish a relationship before you asked for their help.
Yes. This
So,
drives me nuts.
Yeah, none of these gods and goddesses or fae are going to help you if you've never worked with them before, and you just read in a book that this certain goddess is, you know, great with this type of working, and you're just like, hey, can you help me get this? But you've never talked to them before, you've never given them an offering, you've never established a relationship, they're not going to help you.
I think this is forgotten a lot when people are trying to work with a new deity or even fae. They know, they think they know who they want to work with, but they forget. It's like moving to a new neighborhood. You don't bang on your neighbor's door and demand milk from them. No, you talk to them a while, you get to know them, and then if you run out of milk, you can go over and ask for a cup of milk. Like, you can't just start going into their house without permission and rummaging around the fridge. Manners matter.
So those are all of the common reasons that a spell may not be working. If you're not getting the results that you want, then definitely go over that list and see if there's something that may apply to what you are doing. But a spell backfires are a little bit different than it's simply not working. A spell backfire is where a spell or ritual or any other magical working that you're doing that has been undertaken begins manifesting in unwanted, unexpected ways, or the energy returns back to you. So this backfire can manifest in a lot of different ways, depending on the type of working, how you did it, how long ago you did it, who it was for. All of these things matter in how that backfire is going to manifest. But the most common way that witches experience a backfire is when they cast a spell for someone else or on someone else. And as a result, they experience these negative things happening in their own life. That is exactly what we warned against when we talked about black and white magic. That's why we started with that episode.
I was going to say the threefold rule here comes into play for me a lot.
Yes, it's because your energy has literally been returned back to you. And another common way that a backfire manifests is that you are achieving the exact opposite of what you wanted.
Yes.
So there are, you know, in these ways that a spell doesn't work, you might, you know, ask for wealth and not exactly get what you want, but you find a penny on the ground. A backfire is different. It is the exact opposite. It would be losing money instead of finding a penny on the ground. So why do these things happen? Well, a common reason is because spell work has been done on another person, either positive or negative. This is what we talked about when we talked about that baneful magic, that they could have energies protecting them that you don't know about, that they may not even know about, and that working will bounce straight back to you.
Yes.
This is
defensive magics come into play here a lot. Yeah,
this is often common with other witches. Don't cast a spell on another witch if they didn't ask you to, because we all have protections up. But it can happen for, you know, people who aren't in the magical world, and it happens more often with negative intentions than sending someone positive vibes or something like that. It happens more with with negative that it bounces back, but that it's harder to, we talked about that, doing a spell on another person than it is for yourself. So
it's always harder to tie it to them just because you're not as closely linked to them. You might not know what their intentions are. It's always easier to do spell work for yourself just because you have a direct tie into both the energy and the intention. But yeah.
And protections may also be up around properties, vehicles, businesses, etc. So protections can exist anywhere. Like we have protections up around our house, but you can have protections around a business and things too. So that's another reason that if you're directing, you may not be directing energy at a person, but if you're directing energy at, a property or, their car or something like that, that can also backfire.
I was gonna say, I have protections on my vehicle as well. So
another reason is that, like we mentioned, asking for the impossible isn't working. Asking for the impossible is another reason that the energy has nowhere to go. So it comes directly back to you. And so just disappearing into the universe and the spell not happening at all, it may just come back and bounce back at you. And that's not something that you want either. So it's another reason to don't ask for impossible things. That's especially true in negative workings. If you are wishing something particularly bad, physical harm against another person, and in whatever way it's impossible for that to happen to that person, then that is definitely going to be bounced directly back on you. So be very careful.
Especially with that impossible one, the universe may try for a little while to assist you before the impossibility comes in. So it may not be instantaneous too. This is where the Wiccan threefold rule comes into a lot of users, is they might get a little bit of energy back at first, but some of it is still in the universe trying to see if there's a workaround. So it might be a year plus down the road when suddenly all of this energy is coming back to you. And if it is negative, that's really bad. But even positive energy, it can be a surprise jolt to have come back to you, especially if it's much later.
Another reason a spell might backfire is that you haven't released the energy properly and it's just stuck in your space. This can happen with positive intentions too.
Grounding is important.
Yes, we talked. That's why we talked about that. And casting a circle, you can't just cast the circle. You also need to properly break down the circle when you're done with your working.
Yes, highly important.
You have to make sure that you release that energy properly. We talked about lots of ways that a spell is over. You burned the piece of paper or something like that. We talked about disposing of spell remains, all of those things. So just make sure you release the energy properly. And the last reason is that negative energies and spirits may have affected the working. They could be in your space, or they could be in your tools, or you can have a negative energy or spirit attached to you personally.
Yes. This is one of the reasons why we always say cleanse your tools. As soon as you get them, cleanse them often.
Yes. And we talked about cleansing yourself before you start a working. That's why we did house cleansing already. So, it's important to not have those negative energies attached to you before you do a working, because then they attach onto your working, and that's why it backfires.
Well, even with positive energies, they can interfere with your spell work if they had different intentions when they were drawn in. It might not be a complete backfire, but you'll notice things just go much more smoothly if you cleanse your tools in between workings. Negative energies are the worst, but even positive ones can interfere with a working you're doing.
So, of course, the most common follow-up question to that is, how do you stop it?
Cleanse. No, there's other things.
Cleanse. Yes. And the fact is, there is no way to completely avoid a spell backfire.
No.
There's no 100%, cure-all rate. But there are some ways that you can limit it from happening. And the first is, of course, to avoid doing spells on other people or on other people's behalf. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to do and not always necessary. even for positive workings, it can be better to aim your energy at situations or objects instead of directly at that person. That's why a lot of people choose dollies. The most commonly known one is a voodoo doll, but it doesn't have to be, a negative voodoo doll. There's a lot of dollies, and a lot of people, have dollies of their friends that they take care of. If a friend's going through, a hard time or something, then they focus that energy on that dolly, the positive energy, and that, transfers to their friend. That's like a step in between there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not directing the energy directly at a person.
And that's going to give you time, if there is a backlash, it will filter it a bit.
And we are going to have an episode coming up. Let's see here. 6 episodes from now, I think it is, that we are having a episode all about dolls and puppets and tag locks and all of those things. So kind of what we're talking about
those. They're very handy tools.
They're very handy tools. And you can also make a dolly of yourself, so the dolly attracts the negative energy. So
I may have one of those.
Good workaround there, but we'll get into that later. Another way to stop backfires is, of course, negative workings are more likely to backfire than positive ones. Oh. So if this is something that you're really worried about, then stay away from the negative workings for the time being. If you don't feel comfortable with them, never do any sort of spell work that you're not comfortable with, obviously. But a lot of people are more uncomfortable with the baneful magic than they are with doing a positive working. So, always aim for things that are likely to happen, so the energy has someplace to go.
Mm-hmm. This one, not only are you aiming, but if you are making mundane efforts as well, I think this really helps make sure that there's not a backfire. So even if it's impossible at the beginning or improbable at the beginning, if you're putting mundane efforts in, it becomes more and more likely. So it's less and less likely of a backfire because your spell work is continuing on.
You also want to make sure you release your energy effectively. This is just something that comes with time and practice. You may need to do more self-cleansing after a working. We talked about cleansing yourself before, but there's also cleansing after a working. You may just need to do more of that until you're more comfortable with releasing your energy and you've done it effectively. Just cleansing yourself after a working is a good way to make sure that energy is released.
Even if you're a really adept practitioner, there's no harm in cleansing yourself afterwards or before.
Yes. And in general, make sure that your space and your tools are cleansed before you undertake any sort of working.
Cleanse!
Of course, you can cleanse them afterwards, dispose of things properly. And of course, cast circles. Cast circles is a great way to stop spells from backfiring. Just make sure that you also take down the circle correctly.
Yes. Just like when you light a candle, you want to make sure it's properly extinguished. When you cast a circle, make sure it's properly taken down.
That was a pretty long episode there.
There were things to say.
Yeah, so many things to say about why spells may not be working. So if you have any other additional questions, or you have a specific situation where you can't really figure out why a spell is not working and you need help troubleshooting, then please send us a message. On Patreon, we respond more quickly, and there's also a community because there's like a board area for our other members to interact. So it's the best way to get a quick response and get the opinion of lots of other witches who should be able to help you with your situation. But as always, you can reach out to us on Instagram or over email as well. And I will make sure that I link the Patreon and the notes for this, so you can find us easily, because we are close to doing a giveaway on there. Because I think it was 20 when we get to 20 patrons that we will do a fun giveaway that will only be open to patrons. So definitely head over there and check it out.
Yes. There are a couple of free sample things on Patreon as well, if you want to check it out before becoming a patron. But then there's lots of goodies for those that have joined.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, when you start troubleshooting, never be afraid to ask others why something might have gone wrong. It's not like a checklist. It's not like cooking, as we said. There's not like oh, you forgot the salt. It could be A, it could be B, it could be yellow. Like there's lots of different things out there that can affect your spell work. So never be afraid to troubleshoot with others.
Yes, we'll be happy to help you out.
Yes.
But that is all we have for you this week, and we will see you next week for more on defensive magic.
Yes, I'm very excited for that episode.
We will see you then.
All right, bye. Follow us on Insta.
Thanks for listening to Witch Wednesdays with Steph and Tara. Love our content? Consider donating at anchor.fm/witch-wednesdays to help keep our podcast up and running. Please leave us a voicemail on that same site if you have any questions or comments, and follow us on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast.